Hey guys, welcome back to 1776 or Bust. So today I'm going to be showing you this right here, and this is the Beretta APX full-size model. Now, obviously there are a few more variants that have just come out not too long ago, the Centurion and the Compact, but I wound up picking up the full-size model on Gunbroker. I got a really good price. I actually paid $323 and then about $25 for shipping and with insurance. So I paid slightly under $350, or maybe I think it was something like $350 or $353 for this handgun. And that's one of the reasons why I picked it up, because the price was just too good to resist. I've been, listening to a lot of you from the channel and also from other social media about me maybe looking at picking one of these up and doing a review and seeing what I think about it. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about this handgun, and overall, I am very pleased with the handgun. The one question that I would have for all of you, and I'll kind of talk about it when we get to the table, is should I actually keep the full size, or should I actually scale down and go with something like the Centurion or the Compact? And the reason why I say that is because this gun is really good. It shoots really nice. The trigger is very good. There's a lot of great features and a lot of great aspects of this handgun that I truly do like. My only thing about it was after I was shooting it and brought it home and kind of, cleaned it off a little bit, I started wondering to myself if this is a gun that's any better than any of the other full-size handguns that I own, And for example, is it better than the Glock 19X, which is not necessarily full-size because of the slide, but because of the grip? Is it better than the M&P that I have in the 4 1/4 inch? So for me to look at something like this, it would have to be better than those. And I don't know if it is. I'm not going to say it's worse because I don't think it is. I think the trigger is very, very good. But at the same time, because I already have a couple of full-size guns that I like very much, I wonder if I need to scale this down. So that's kind of my general question to all of you when you watch the video, to think about that and then let me know what your opinion is on it. So why don't we take a look at the table and kind of go through this step by step. I'm going to do some comparisons on some other guns, especially one gun that this really reminds me a lot of, but we'll get to the table and we'll check it out. All right, guys, so we're back to the table, and on it you can see the APX in all of its glory and the wolf gray frame, and I definitely like the way it looks. Nice little color, that's for sure. Now, in regards to the Beretta, there are a lot of good features about the handgun that, as soon as you pick it up, you're going to realize that this gun is actually fairly good. First off, the ergonomics of the grip, I think, is probably the one that you're mostly going to want to talk about, and when you talk about this handgun, it just feels really good in your hand. And I know there's always those people out there that make fun of that statement, but I think as a gun owner and as a gun buyer, the most important thing that you're going to come across is how does the gun actually feel in your hand? Now, of course, some people may be put off by the size of this handgun. Again, keep in mind, it is a fairly large handgun. It is a full-size duty pistol. But at the same time, guys, it's not something that is, in my opinion, just so overly large that you couldn't carry it, that you couldn't use it. I mean, it's very good at the range. Again, duty pistol. And honestly, could you carry this handgun? Yes, you can. You can carry any handgun you buy. You just got to make sure that you're dressing around it. Now, in regards to the gun overall, the size of it, I think, is where a lot of people say, this gun may be a little bit problematic for me just because I don't really want a gun that big. And it's kind of interesting that people say that, because that's sort of how I feel about it after I've shot it and after I've played around with it for a little while. And the reason why I'm saying that is because even though it's a full-size handgun and it works really well, I don't necessarily know if I need a full-size handgun like this. So for me, I'm probably going to wind up selling it, but not to walk away from the APX line, just to kind of reduce it in size. So I'm probably going to wind up picking up either a Centurion or the Compact. I'm actually leaning more towards the Centurion because it is more comparable to a Glock 19 in size. And that's really where I want to go with this handgun, because I really do like the handgun because it has a lot of great features on it. Now, speaking of features, the first thing that a lot of people will notice also on the handgun, besides the great ergonomics, is going to be the serrations on the slide. Now, of course, when this gun first came out, and by the way, the gun is safety checked, but when this gun first came out, guys, there was a lot of people who were saying, man, those serrations are kind of goofy or ugly or whatever. To me, honestly, that's how I felt when I first saw the gun. As a matter of fact, I would be making fun of KS Gun Guy a lot for it. Now, in regards to it, you kind of get used to it, and after a while, you begin to realize that not only do they look good, but they're extremely functional. Again, some people have said my hands slip. Honestly, guys, there's a lot of bite to these slide serrations. As you go a little bit down, they go a little bit more, and let me see if I can get this into the camera. They actually kind of reduce in size. They kind of slim down towards the bottom of the slide. However, at the top, your fingers fit pretty much well right there, and there's a plenty amount of bite there, so you can actually do press checks. You can, you know, rack your slide, slingshotting it, or whatever you want to do. So the traction of the slide is excellent. I would say that it probably is the best out there right now. Again, when you look at the just the aesthetics of the handgun, you know, I do like the way they put the Beretta emblem here with the Beretta written out. And of course, if you can, hopefully I can zoom in on this, it says Gardone, Vermont, made in Italy. Again, pretty cool. You know, it's simple, but it's kind of nice. I mean, it's almost like a classy, elegant looking handgun, which is kind of interesting. Now, obviously, with the front of the gun and the rear of the gun, you can see that there's a fairly deep undercut. And I really like guns that do this. To me, this is the way the modern striker-fired gun really needs to start focusing in on, because when you start to make these undercuts really deep here, what you're going to wind up doing is you're going to actually be able to get more of your hand underneath the slide. And if you're talking about the controllability of a handgun, what you're going to find is that the further your hand goes underneath that slide, the smoother and flatter that gun is going to feel. Now, some might say it's about, you know, the bore axis or axis or whatever, and or the slide height, whatever you want to say. What I think it boils down to is this thing could have a very high slide height. However, if it has a deep undercut, you're still going to offset that by having your hand far underneath that slide. And I just think, for me, those types of guns right now seem to work best. You know, the P10, very similar to this. Although I didn't have much luck with the P10 series, I always said ergonomically it was really nice because your hand felt really good and really comfortable underneath the, I guess you can call this the beaver tail, and the slide of the handgun. Now again, the grip texturing is, in my opinion, perfect. It is a good combination of aggressive but not overly aggressive. So obviously you see your checkering in the back here, and also on these really not pronounced, I guess you can, whatever they call these, finger grooves. So you can see that you have some minor finger grooves here, but they're not very pronounced. And I know that Beretta is coming out with the non-finger grooved option of these grips, but honestly, guys, I don't even know if you can call them finger grooves because you don't feel them. They're not exactly, you know, pronounced where you're going to have to be trapped in there. And honestly, it just feels to me perfect the way it is. Again, you have a pretty decent angle in the back here. You don't have too much of a hump back here like you say on a Glock, or let's say even the Steyr M9. However, you do get a nice little angle, and once you put your hand on it, this part of your handgun just actually sits perfectly into the webbing of your hand. And I just think that that's exactly why this gun is so comfortable to shoot and shoots really well. Now again, it may look pretty wide, however, it isn't super wide. The gun, let me see if I can just pull up these figures for you really quick. Where did I go do with them? Okay, so I'm going to read this to you right off the Beretta website because I'm going to cheat a little bit. But basically, the overall width of the 9mm, which you see in front of you here, is only 1.3 inches. So that's actually not that bad. You know, a lot of people may say, my God, this gun is really thick. But it's really not. You know, 1.3 inches is not very fat of a gun. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is a lot of people think the Steyr is very thick. The Steyr is actually 1.2 inches. So it's actually a 1/10 of an inch difference. So that's not actually that bad in regards to the thickness or the girth of the gun. Now, of course, when you look at the overall length, you're looking at roughly, let's see, 7.5 inches. The overall width is 1.3 inches, and the overall height is 5.6 inches. Now, again, one of the guns that I compared this to, especially with the way it felt, was my Steyr M9. Now, again, the barrel is 4.25 inches here, but I'm going to pull the Steyr out really quick so you guys can just see it and compare the two. So this is one of my favorites, guys. You know that, the Steyr M9. Now, the Steyr M9 is for whatever reason, these two guns really remind me a lot of each other. Now, if I was going to put them one on top of the other to kind of see what it looks like, and I'm going to see if I can do that so it makes sense. You know, the Steyr obviously has a little bit more of a dramatic hump in the back. You can see the difference between the two. But if you look at that undercut for both guns, I would tell you that Steyr has a little bit more of a dramatic undercut, but only because of that hump right here. But the APX is pretty deep underneath that slide. And honestly, guys, I think that's one of the reasons why I really like this handgun, because once you put it on, your hand on there, it just feels natural. It's a natural shooting handgun, points extremely natural when you bring it to your eye level. It just feels really good, really confident in the hand, and I think that's always a good thing. Again, the slide height, fairly low. Again, not as low as this, but at the same time, it is a fairly low slide. And again, if I put my hand on the gun, you'll notice that that slide is resting just slightly over your hand line or your arm, and that's a good thing. You know, again, lower the slide height, the further you go underneath that slide, the smoother this gun is going to shoot. In regards to the trigger on it, guys, again, very, very good trigger. As a matter of fact, I'm going to measure it for you so you can see. I've been getting around 5.5 pound trigger pulls on this every time. So let's see where it's at right now. So 5 pounds, 3.7 ounces, which is a little bit low. So I'll do it one more time and we'll see where it's at now. And then, of course, we get the 6 pounds, 6.4 ounces. So we'll see what that averages out to. So about 5 pounds, 13 ounces. So a little bit over 5.5 pounds. It's been more, I would say, in the 5.5 pound range. But again, not too heavy, not too light. It's actually a fairly good trigger. In regards to the way the trigger feels in your hand, again, you'll notice that it is a fairly flat trigger. The trigger safety does not actually recess all the way into the trigger shoe, which is kind of the only bummer that I had on the trigger, just because after a while you can definitely feel that on your finger. But the trigger pull is really nice, guys. So there's your wall. Look how short that is. You know, so again, a lot of people complain about an APX upgrade, saying that the wall is, you know, or the pre-travel is too light or too short. Look how short this pre-travel is. Okay, you have a little, really no movement to really write home about. Let me see if I can get that to go again. No movement, which is really nice. Now the reset, fairly short. A little bit of more movement there, a little bit more, and then some move, and then the trigger breaks. So I mean, overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, the trigger to me is about an 8.5 to 9. It is very smooth, very short, very crisp. As a matter of fact, I would say it's probably one of the top 5 triggers out of a box for any handgun that's out right now. Now, in regards to sight picture, 3-dot sights. They are not night sights. They are not glow-in-the-dark sights. And, you know, they're kind of plain, nothing too great. The sight picture is pretty easy to pick up. You have some space in between, so it looks really good. So really no issues. Now, in regards to the takedown of the handgun, this is probably going to be the biggest problem for a lot of people. When I first got this button right here was a pain in the butt. It would not budge. As a matter of fact, if you can see right there, I had to use the corner of a desk to push it in and left a little bit of a mark there, but who cares? And eventually it broke free. Now, obviously now, when I go to take off the slide, the button actually is super easy to press in. And then once you press in that button, if I can get that on camera, you just pull down the slide release and it'll pop right off. You don't have to pull the trigger, it comes right off. Again, the rails are kind of interesting. Again, you can see that they are basically full-length rails, which is actually pretty interesting. And the reason why I say that is because now it has something consistent to ride along, which again will allow for, in my opinion, a smoother shooting handgun. Again, most manufacturers don't do that. They basically just do 2 little slithers of steel here, 2 little slithers back here, and that's that. In this case, it is actually a full-size or full-length rail, which is actually pretty nice. Now, one of the things I also wanted to show you, which is why I say this gun reminds me of another one, it absolutely 100% reminds me of the Steyr in so many different ways. So when I took down the Steyr and I actually field strip it, you'll notice here again, 2 little slithers there, 2 little slithers there, but you have a very big steel block where the trigger mechanism sits in and everything else. And it really does remind me a lot of the handgun. You know, maybe not necessarily the internals, but there's just something very similar to both of these handguns that I like a lot. Again, you can see the beaver tail on the APX extends a little bit further back, whereas it looks like to me, and again, that's to me, it looks like the Steyr actually sits a little bit lower in the hand than, let's say, the APX. There's just a little bit more polymer there than on the Steyr. But again, that's just my opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong. Again, put the gun back on together. You know, basically, you just have to pull the slide back, lock it in place, and it works no problem. One of the best features of this handgun, fully ambidextrous. So again, you don't have the ambidextrous mag release here. You actually have to pop it and move it around, but I still consider that fully ambi only because you have the ability to do that. Now, one of the things that I have been doing lately with all the guns that say they're ambidextrous is I've been testing it. Obviously, the P10 has been giving people problems for lefties, which, you know, is nothing new. And you'll notice that there's the right, very easy to actuate, and I like that. And then here's the left. Super easy to do, no problems. Everything works really well. I mean, overall, the fit and finish of the handgun is fantastic. I like the way it feels. I like the way it looks. My only question to all of you is going to be to decide, should I actually take this gun and reduce it in size and get myself a Centurion or a compact, or should I just keep the full size? Overall, I was very satisfied with this handgun. Again, there will be a follow-up video where I'm shooting the handgun, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my afterthoughts about the handgun as a whole. But overall, very impressed with the Beretta APX. I would highly recommend it just because it shoots really well, feels really good, the trigger's excellent, fit and finish is superb, and the grip texturing, in my opinion, is probably the best on the market with that checkering in the front and the back and just a little bit more aggressiveness on the sides here. But overall, great gun, Beretta. You did a really nice job. So again, love to hear what you think. Keep the full size or reduce in size. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you have a great night. Stay safe. And as always, freedom is never free.